The European Commission is set to impose countervailing duties of up to 35.3% on electric vehicles from China, additional to the European Union's 10% tariff on imported cars, after EU countries did not oppose the move in a 4th October qualified majority vote. Even though Germany and 4 other members voted against the duties and 12 other members abstained, the Commission can now proceed with the countervailing duties before a 30th October deadline. Negotiations with the Chinese may continue even after that. The duties are a mistake. They will harm EU citizens more than help them, and they will eventually backfire on the European automotive industry. According to industry sources, Chinese-made electric vehicles, many in joint ventures with EU and US car makers, now match world quality standards and are much lower priced. Indeed, this is the fear that triggered the policy debate on duties. Moreover, it is understood in the automotive industry that subsidies in China and elsewhere now play a minor role in market outcomes. The price and quality advantage of Chinese electric vehicles appears to reflect China's vast economies of scale. It produces 60% of all electric vehicles, low labor costs, a technology and materials edge in batteries, intense competition among over 100 China-based producers, and their early mover advantages. In an animated debate over the countervailing duties, their biggest cost is the least discussed. Persistently high electric vehicle prices hurt all consumers, and especially those with low incomes. For many less well-off European Union citizens, especially in rural areas, a car is the only viable transportation option. Yet with these duties, many EU citizens potentially willing to green their vehicles will be unable to do so. Their peers in Japan, Norway and the United Kingdom, which have eschewed such duties so far, will be better placed, as will the middle classes in poorer nations such as China, Mexico or Thailand. The countervailing duties will also have 3 negative longer-term repercussions. First, China will retaliate. It has already challenged the countervailing duties at the World Trade Organization, and the European Union may lose under compulsory arbitration. I believe that the Commission's case for such high duties is weak. The methods used by the Commission to compute the duties systematically and considerably overestimate China's subsidies. Grants, land use rights, preferential financing, battery inputs. This conclusion is consistent with industry views. No one doubts that the Chinese subsidize, and they are not alone, but the impact should not be overstated. Second, the countervailing duties will insulate the EU's electric vehicle producers from global competitive pressures, reducing the incentive to cut costs and innovate. Once imposed, duties, which legally extend for 5 years, will be extraordinarily difficult to remove because the industry, including car makers, their suppliers and their workers, will adjust and become entitled to them. The duties will discourage European manufacturers from developing integrated value chains with Chinese partners and their highly competitive suppliers. The hold EU car makers have on the Chinese market will weaken, and more so if China retaliates directly against them, which is a real possibility. Though sheltered at home, EU producers will still have to compete in China, the fast-growing markets of the developing world, and in many others. The prospect that they fall behind the curve is real. Third, the countervailing duties represent another step in the fragmenting of world trade and the possible decoupling of the West from China. The economic costs and uncertainties of trade fragmentation are well documented and will not spare the EU. For example, the US market is already closed to Chinese electric vehicles. If Trump is re-elected, he has promised an additional 10% tariff on all imports, including those from the EU. Furthermore, it is naive to believe that trade conflicts among great powers will be confined to the economic sphere. A trade war with China will strain alliances within the EU, embolden revanchists at its border, further accelerate the regional arms race, and make it harder to contain nuclear proliferation nearby and across the world. Trends that are already painfully evident today. Is there a better course? The answer is yes. The Commission's attempt to negotiate a price cap with the Chinese, a promise that the price of their electric vehicle exports will not fall much below that of those produced domestically, is not the answer. It works against consumers and would deny the EU the duty revenue. Instead, the aim should be to make Chinese automotive subsidies transparent and less distortive of trade. There should also be an understanding that if imports of Chinese electric vehicles threaten grievous harm to the EU's industry, which is not the case today, then a safeguard measure will be imposed. To be WTO consistent, such a duty would be temporary and applied to electric vehicle imports from all sources, not only from China. Until 30 October, the countervailing duties remain provisional. It's not too late for the EU to change its mind.